If you haven't, I'm going to sound like Dave Ramsey and Glenn Beck combined here with my little tin hat on, but I'll get on my soapbox and jump off quick. But start collecting what's important to you. Start doing what's important, hanging out with your family, with your daughter, your granddaughters, because I honestly believe we're heading into a place that's much worse than where we've been in the last year. And I don't mean to sound like the doom and gloom guy, but I guess somebody's got to say it. I know you guys can see what's happening out there, and it's not getting any better. I mean, there's no such thing as a jobless recovery. Talk to some of your neighbors that have been unemployed through some of this. I mean, they got to see what's going on, even if they maybe haven't talked politics with you before. But get your affairs in order, start stocking up on what's important to you, whether it's precious metals, food, water, because I think there's going to come a time where you're going to be glad for everything you got. And thank yourself and your family and God for what you do have, because there are people that are a lot worse off. The ones that don't know what's going on when that shoe falls, they're going to be awful surprised at what's hitting the ground, I'm afraid. Gary, you want to introduce our guest speakers?
Yeah, the first speaker tonight will be Kristi Noem. She's currently representing District 6. Well, I'm sure glad I put that up there. And she's Assistant Majority Leader in the House of Representatives, State of South Dakota. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to her so she can tell a little bit more about herself. Welcome, Kristi Noem.
Well, good. This is great to be here. I appreciate you all coming, and I feel bad for those of you who have heard my speech before, because you're probably going to hear it again, but I see some new faces, so hopefully you'll enjoy hearing a little bit about me. But I'm a farmer and rancher from Hamlin County, and Hamlin County is part of my legislative district. I've been in the legislature for 4 years, but I grew up there. I grew on our family farm and ranch there, and from the time I was little, I've always dreamed about just farming with my dad. That's what I knew I wanted to do. But when I went to college and was taking classes at SDSU, my dad was killed in a farm accident. So I came home and took over the farm, spent all my time driving tractor and pulling calves and trying to figure out how to make our family farm a success. So we pulled together during that time, during times of crisis, to do that as a family. And I look at the situation that our country is facing right now as exactly that type of a situation. You know, we need to get back to doing what our founding fathers did. And what they did is, and who we elected and who served our country were people that were businessmen and women, common everyday people who stepped forward to lead our country in times of crisis. And then they led when we needed them, and then stepped back as well. And that's what we've done wrong here in America, is we've been electing career politicians. People who from the time they were young, they dreamed about being in Congress, and went to college and ran, and that's how they served, and it became more important to them staying there than it did representing the people and being a public servant. So I've been in the legislature for 4 years, worked hard on a lot of legislation. I will tell you a little bit about a couple of pieces of legislation. This year I sponsored the Firearms Freedom Act, and maybe you heard about this bill, but it was out in, first passed in Montana. But our bill here in South Dakota says any gun or ammunition that's manufactured in South Dakota, sold in South Dakota, and stays in South Dakota isn't subject to any federal regulation. And I think that that bill is extremely important to us, because I'm a lifetime member of the NRA, but also a firm defender of our Second Amendment rights. And we need to defend our constitutional rights, don't we? Absolutely. So, you know, from the time I served in the legislature and when I was elected to represent District 6, I had decided that I wasn't going to go there and just be someone who placed votes, like our Congresswoman has been doing. You know, I decided I was going to be as effective as I possibly could. So as soon as I got to the legislature, I ran for the executive board, which is pretty much the leadership position, the only one that you could really run for your first term. And I was elected to serve in that position. The executive board oversees the budget that the legislature operates under, the employees, the summer studies, things like that. My second term, I ran for the assistant majority leader position, and I've been serving in that position for the last 2 years. Our Congresswoman talks about being a leader and stepping forward and speaking for South Dakota. We only have one voice in the U.S. House of Representatives, and it is supposed to be the people's house, where the will and sentiments of the people are heard.